Alrighty, good afternoon. It is June 20th, Thursday. Taking a look at ES here to start with a quick session recap. Finally, some much needed selling. If we take a look at the daily chart, what we're going to see is that we have about 7 consecutive sessions higher here on ES. Really, this trend move started on Friday, May 31st, with just little small breathers from this low that was marked on Friday, May 31st. And so overdue definitely for a bit of a pullback for some sellers to really materialize. Now, as you guys know, if you've been following along for a while, I don't trade based on what price should be doing. I trade based on what price is doing. I'm a reactionary trader. I wait for levels to be tested and then trade accordingly. And one of the main things we were looking at this morning, starting off with ES here, was essentially we came into the day with a little bit of a gap higher. One of the things I had mentioned this morning during the pre-market prep live stream was we wanted to see whether or not, number one, we would have a true gap higher into the actual regular trading hours open, which is right around here. And then number two, how this downside level of interest 55.60 would be treated. And the significance of that level is that it is Tuesday's high, right? So not really giving much focus to that Wednesday action. As I had mentioned in the pre-market prep live stream, there's pretty much no volume there with that Wednesday action, so we don't really want to be reading into that. Most important action from this near-term structure, like I said, is Tuesday's high. Now remember, anytime you have that inside day like we had on Tuesday following an expansion move, that's a key component. Expansion move, inside day. So whenever you have that kind of 1-2 sequence, on day number 3, we're looking for price to break in either direction, and then in the direction of the break, we are looking for, depending on which direction it is, we're looking for either buyers or sellers to show acceptance above or below that level. So in this case, if it is breaking higher, buyers need to show acceptance above that 55.60, which is where that 55.60 is coming from. So we do initially see that price attempts to hold that 55.60, right? But into the afternoon, you get the big washout. Tuesday's low really fails to hold. You get a bounce back into Tuesday's low. Price rolls over. So where do we go from here? What do we have to work with from this point? What I'll be focused on, jumping back to the 30-minute chart, are 2 primary levels. Now that we actually have some structure that is built out that we can actually work with here, I'll be focused, and this is going to depend largely on what the overnight action is looking like, but I'll be focused on Tuesday's low right through here. This 55.45 reference point is going to be significant for tomorrow's session. And then if we do have some continued weakness overnight, potentially this area right through here. So it's either going to be 55.20 as a downside level of interest. This was that prior area of resistance for a 3 to 4 day range, or Tuesday's low. Those will be the 2 primary areas that I'll be interested in engaging with price. So we'll take it from there depending on what that overnight action is looking like. As of right now, you could see definitely some buyers stepping in here versus some of these lower reference points, 55.35, as well as initially earlier this afternoon, we did have some buying versus Tuesday's low. So this area definitely remains significant. And then the other thing we usually like to look at is today's profile, right? So we do have that 55.45, 55.42 area aligned pretty nicely with today's volume point of control. It's within a couple of points, so I'll call that close enough. So what buyers will be looking to do, of course, is continue to show acceptance essentially above today's closing price. And then the idea would be that this turns into a new near-term range, right? Now, sellers, on the other hand, what they are attempting to do is show follow through of today's move. So for that, primarily want to be looking at today's low and then that 55.20 area. Now, the other thing I want to bring to your attention is keep an eye on the shape of this weekly candle, especially if we do see some more weakness tomorrow. That'll give us a good clue for next week as well. So those are the couple of items that I'll be looking at for tomorrow's session, namely based on this close right through here on the 30 minutes, looking like Tuesday's low, 55.45, main level of interest for tomorrow on ES. Now jumping over to NQ. Definitely a different story here on NQ. So NQ was much weaker today comparatively. Not all that surprising considering the concentration that NASDAQ has within tech. So if tech is weak, this thing is really, really going to puke. That's exactly what we saw. So coming into today's sesh, the main clue, the main watch was how price would trade versus this 2250 area. So if 250 fails to hold, right, price is back within Tuesday's range. If this breakout fails to hold, from failed moves comes fast moves, as the old Wall Street adage goes. So you can at the very least expect a test down into that 2160 downside level of interest and potentially Tuesday's low, which is exactly what we saw. Initially, some buyers step in there just to set up a lower high and force some lower prices. Well, where is price now? We'll take a look at the structure here. Trades down through that reference point right through there and test the downside level of interest down into 950. Now, again, looking at the structure, this gives you all the clues that you need. Prior resistance, right through here, then becomes support, now becomes support again. So that'll be the main watch for NQ tomorrow. You can keep an eye on that 20K. That's going to be definitely a big psychological level, but I'll be mostly interested in 19,950. This reference point here, 20,060, still just remains a reference point. We don't have any significance of this level when we look left on the chart. Remember, the strongest levels are going to be aligned with some higher time frame structure. And for right now, very similar to ES, that's either this low, 19,950, or Tuesday's low, which is way up here. Okay, now jumping into the actual intraday, if we take a look at today's profile, let me clear this off. It's pretty wide. So this afternoon range is quite wide. You could take a look at today's volume point of control. I'll just be using that as a reference point. Not a lot of significance there. So that's pretty much the recap for today. Hope you guys had a profitable day at the very least. Did not attempt to catch any falling knives or did not find yourself offsides in a big way. Look at this open right through here. If you were in the pre-market prep live stream, I had mentioned an open in this area, 250 would be ideal. What do we see right off the open? Initial sell, price sweeps the high. It's your Wyckoff up thrust. We also had VWAP right there, just rolls over. So some textbook action, definitely some textbook action for this near-term structure. We'll see if buyers continue to pay up or not, or if the local high is starting to be built out. All right. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.